Welcome to Read Spec with us. I'm Hemant.
And I am Avash.
With us, you shall be reading the ECMAScript specification. As you know, specs aren't like any other books. So we're going to pick and choose sections from the spec with some code samples and analyze why the code is behaving the way it's behaving in correlation with the specification. Sounds exciting? I'm sure. Join us in reading the spec.
Say about we have an array and we say array of null is foo. All right. What do you think array of length should be?
Yeah, I would guess we have one element should be one.
Indeed, it is 0,
Oh,
but we still can access array of null. And say you say array of 100 is equal to say meow. What do you think array of length is now?
So either it doesn't get affected, it should be 0, or maybe it should be like 2 because you have two things.
It's 101. And what do we have in array? We have 100 empty items, we have meow, and we have null. So why does this happen? Let's dive into the spec.
Yep. So here is the spec part for array objects. And it says array objects are exotic objects which give special treatment to some property names.
Abbas, what are exotic objects?
Yeah, that's interesting. It says let's go to this section, and it basically says that it's an exotic object because it gives special treatment to index property keys. So what does that mean? What is the special treatment?
So exotic objects are objects which are not ordinary objects. So any object which has a different implementation of an internal method can be considered as exotic objects, and hence arrays are exotic objects. So when we are trying to assign a value to an index, what exactly is an array index and why does it behave the way it behaved? So an index is a valid index if it's within the range of 0 to 2 power 32 minus 1. In our case, null wasn't in that range. So it behaves like an object key and with the value being assigned to the whatever value we assign to it. So it behaves like a normal object key and value assignment. Where is that defined exactly in the spec? Can we look into that, Abbas?
Yeah. So it says that for arrays, define own property, this internal methods is defined differently. It works differently. So let's do one thing, Hemant. So for when we try to set the key null, what happened in that case? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, sure. In this pseudocode, if you see at 1, we say assert is property key. P is true. In our case, P is null. And then we say if P is length, which is not, then we go to the else if part. It says if P is an array index, it is not because we just saw what array index indices are. And now it finally goes to the fourth section in the flow. It says return ordinary define on property, and that's where it becomes an ordinary definition of that property, and null becomes a property on that array and it doesn't really affect the length. So we say array dot null is equal to some value and we can access it. It's still there on an array as an ordinary property but not affecting the length. Abbas, how about you running through the same for array of 100 equals meow?
Yeah, sure. So it's in this case, our property P is going to be this string 100, right? So it says that, okay, if P is length, of course, P is not the string length, but P is an array index because 100 is an integer in that valid range. So it goes into this whole flow. So it looks like a huge flow, but the important part is at first it defines that key as a own property. So just like the previous flow, it will do ordinary define own property with the property 100 and the value that we provided. But there is a little bit of trick here. It says if index greater than old length. So our index now is 100 and my old length is 0 or 1, something like that. So in that case, index is more than 0. So it goes into this flow. And what it does is that it sets the value of the new length to index plus 1. So my index is 100, so my length becomes 101. And that's all. It sets that length value and finishes the whole flow.
That's cool. In the next episodes, we will dive more into how the length is calculated and why those empty items are created in the array. Hope you enjoy the show. Stay tuned for other